The rust bucket. The Persistence hung in high orbit above New Terra, its scared hull reflecting the pale light of an alien sun. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her weathered face mirroring the state of her ship. 20 years ago, the Persistence had been humanity's pride, a cutting-edge destroyer in the Earth Defense Fleet. Now it was the last remnant of human military might, reduced to a diplomatic gesture. Captain, Lieutenant Rivera's voice crackled through the ship's aging comm system. The Axiom Confederation delegation has arrived. They're requesting permission to board. Sarah straightened her worn uniform, a relic from a military that barely existed anymore. Grant them access, Lieutenant. Let's show our new allies what humanity has to offer. The Axiom Confederation had emerged victorious from the Spiral Arm War, while humanity had barely survived. The terms of peace were simple. Human survivors could keep their remaining colonies, but their military would be dissolved. The Persistence was allowed to continue operating only as a gesture of inclusive cooperation, a museum piece to show the Confederation's magnanimity. The delegation materialized on the bridge in a shimmer of blue light, their crystalline environment suits marking them as members of the Confederation's elite. Ambassador Zexley, a tall figure with iridescent scales, stepped forward, his translator hummed to life. Captain Chen, the Confederation extends its gratitude for your cooperation. The pause was subtle but deliberate. Your ship will be assigned to the Outer Rim Patrol Fleet, a purely ceremonial position, of course. Sarah nodded, maintaining her composure despite the condescension dripping from every word. We're honored to serve, Ambassador, though I should warn you, the Persistence isn't exactly in prime condition. Yes, we noticed. Zexley's multifaceted eyes swept across the bridge, taking in the patched panels and jury-rigged systems. Your species' technological limitations are well documented, but don't worry, you won't be expected to handle any real threats. The Confederation's warships will handle those. As the delegation toured the ship, Sarah watched their reactions. The Axiom representatives barely concealed their disdain for human technology. They saw outdated targeting systems, primitive shield generators, and engines that belonged in a museum. What they didn't see, couldn't see, were the modifications her crew had already begun making. Deep in the ship's bowels, Chief Engineer Maya Patel was already at work. Her hands moved across salvaged components with practiced precision, integrating them into the Persistence's systems in ways their designers never intended. The Confederation might see an obsolete rust bucket, but Maya saw potential. How's it coming? Sarah asked through a secured channel once the delegation had departed. Better than expected, Captain, Maya replied, excitement evident in her voice. Remember those quantum field manipulators we salvaged from the Helix wreck? I think I've figured out how to integrate them with our shield grid. It won't make us any stronger, but it might let us do something interesting with incoming energy weapons. Sarah smiled. The Confederation saw humans as primitive, barely worth noticing. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt, to take the pieces others discarded and turn them into something new. Keep at it, Maya. But remember, nothing obvious. As far as the Confederation is concerned, we're just a broken-down relic being kept around for show. The Persistence's first patrol assignment came 3 days later. They were to accompany a Confederation battle group to the Outer Rim, serving as a visible reminder of the new peace. The massive Confederation ships dwarfed the Persistence, their crystalline hulls gleaming with power and technology far beyond human capabilities. Or so they thought. As the fleet prepared to depart, Sarah stood on her bridge, watching the stars. The Confederation had won their war, but they'd made a crucial mistake. They assumed that because humanity's technology was inferior, humans themselves were inferior. They didn't understand that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the strongest ship or the most advanced technology. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is being underestimated. All systems ready, Captain, Rivera reported. though engineering reports our efficiency ratings are well below Confederation standards. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. That's all right, Lieutenant. We wouldn't want to show up our hosts, would we? The Persistence took its place at the rear of the formation, its engines coughing and stuttering just enough to maintain the illusion of decay. But beneath its scared hull, changes were already taking place. The ship that would depart New Terra wouldn't be the same one that returned. The Confederation was about to learn a valuable lesson about humanity. Never judge a species by its technology. Judge them by what they can do with it. Human innovation. 3 weeks into their patrol assignment, the Persistence had established a reputation within the Confederation fleet. The massive crystalline warships treated the human vessel like an aging relative, something to be tolerated but not taken seriously. Captain Chen encouraged this perception, ensuring her ship maintained its appearance of barely controlled decay. But in the darkness of third shift, when most of the crew should have been sleeping, the real work continued. Chief Engineer Maya Patel stood in what her team now called the Innovation Lab, a repurposed cargo hold filled with salvage technology. Holographic displays showed the Persistence's internal systems, highlighting the modifications they'd made so far. The beauty of it, Maya explained to Captain Chen, is that they're so convinced of their superiority, they don't even bother scanning us properly. Their automated systems see what they expect to see: outdated human technology. Sarah examined the displays, noting how the salvaged quantum field manipulators had been integrated throughout the ship. And what would they see if they looked closer? Maya's grin widened. That's the clever part. We're not trying to match their technology. We're doing something completely different. Remember those neural interface units we recovered from the abandoned mining station? We've integrated them with our targeting systems. Instead of trying to compute targeting solutions faster, we're letting human intuition guide the weapons directly. The innovations weren't limited to weapons. Every system on the Persistence was being quietly transformed. Lieutenant Rivera had worked with Maya to modify the sensors, creating a hybrid system that combined primitive human radar with salvaged quantum detection arrays. The result wasn't more powerful than Confederation sensors. It was just different enough to detect things their standardized systems might miss. Status report from the fleet. Rivera's voice came over the comm. They're picking up some unusual energy signatures in the narrow sector. Nothing their sensors can properly identify. Sarah nodded. Acknowledged. Maintain our position at the rear of the formation. We wouldn't want to get in the way of their investigation. The Confederation fleet moved with precision, their crystalline ships arranging themselves in textbook formation. The Persistence followed at a distance, its engines still producing that carefully maintained stutter. But beneath the facade, the ship's hybrid sensors were gathering data that painted a very different picture. "Captain," Rivera called out, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Our modified sensors are picking up something the fleet's missing. The energy signatures. They're not random. There's a pattern, but it's being masked by quantum fluctuations." Sarah studied the data on her personal display. The Confederation's advanced sensors were being fooled by their own sophistication. They were looking for known threat patterns, following established protocols. The Persistence's jury-rigged system, combining old and new technology in ways neither was designed for, saw something else entirely. "Keep monitoring," Sarah ordered. "But don't inform the fleet yet. Let's see where this leads." Over the next few days, the Persistence's crew continued their work. In the ship's mess hall, converted into an impromptu research lab during off hours, Dr. Helen John worked on another innovation. She had discovered that the crystalline technology the Confederation used had an unexpected weakness. It was too perfect. "Their systems are designed to be optimal," she explained to Sarah over a late-night cup of coffee. "But sometimes optimal isn't adaptable. We're taking imperfect components and finding ways to make them work together. It's messy, it's inefficient, but it's unpredictable. And unpredictable might be exactly what we need." The Confederation fleet continued its patrol, unaware that the primitive human ship they barely tolerated was becoming something entirely new. Not more advanced, different. While they sought perfection, the humans aboard the Persistence embraced improvisation. Sarah stood on her bridge, watching the Confederation ships through the viewport. Their crystalline hulls sparkled with power and precision, each ship a testament to technological superiority. But as she looked down at her own hands, scared and calloused from years of working with whatever tools were available, she understood something the Confederation had forgotten. Technology wasn't just about advancement. It was about adaptation. Evolution didn't always favor the strongest or most sophisticated. Sometimes it favored those who could change, who could take what they had and make it into something new. Captain, Maya's voice came through on a secure channel. We've completed the modifications to the dry system. You won't believe what we managed to do with those salvaged graviton inductors. Sarah smiled. I'm sure I won't. But I have a feeling our friends in the Confederation are about to learn something important about human innovation. The Persistence continued its patrol, maintaining its carefully crafted image of obsolescence. But with each passing day, the ship was less of what the Confederation thought it was and more of what humanity needed it to be. Not a relic of the past, but a testament to human adaptability and innovation. And soon, very soon, they would all discover just how dangerous that could be. First contact, first blood. The warning came not from the Confederation fleet's advanced sensors, but from the Persistence's hybrid detection system. Lieutenant Rivera's voice cut through the quiet of the bridge, tight with urgency. Captain, those energy patterns we've been tracking. They're converging. Multiple signatures, moving fast, on an intercept course with the fleet. Sarah Chen straightened in her command chair. For weeks, they'd watched these strange readings that the Confederation's sophisticated sensors couldn't properly detect. Now they were about to find out what they meant. Time to intercept, she asked. 3 minutes. The Confederation fleet hasn't reacted yet. Their automated detection systems still haven't recognized the threat pattern. Sarah made a quick decision. Protocol demanded she alert the fleet, but doing so would reveal that the Persistence's sensors were far more capable than they should be. Before she could decide, the decision was made for her. Space itself seemed to tear open. Where there had been empty void, dozens of ships appeared. But ships wasn't quite the right word. They were like living shadows, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The Confederation fleet's perfect formation suddenly seemed meaningless. Multiple unknown vessels detected. The Confederation flagship's automated alert echoed across all channels. Battle stations, defensive formation. The crystalline ships moved with precision, their formations mathematically perfect, but their attackers didn't play by conventional rules. The shadow ships moved in impossible ways, seeming to fade in and out of reality itself. The Confederation's weapons can't lock on, Rivera reported, watching the initial exchange of fire. Their targeting systems require stable quantum signatures, and these ships, they're like ghosts. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Good thing we're not relying on quantum targeting then. Maya, is the neural interface system ready? Online and waiting, Captain. The engineer's voice came back. Though I should mention it's never been tested in actual combat. No time like the present. Sarah opened a channel to the weapons control room. All gunners to your stations, switching to neural interface targeting. Trust your instincts. Don't try to track them. Feel where they're going to be. The Persistence's weapons might have been primitive by Confederation standards, but they had been modified in ways their original designers never imagined. Instead of trying to compute targeting solutions, the gunners used the neural interfaces to aim through intuition, treating the massive ship's weapons as extensions of their own bodies. The first shadow ship to attack the Persistence probably expected an easy target. What it got instead was a barrage of seemingly primitive projectile weapons and energy beams that somehow anticipated its movements. The neural interface system didn't try to track the ship's impossible maneuvers. It responded to the gunner's unconscious predictions of where the target would be. Direct hit, Rivera called out. Enemy vessel showing signs of damage. Captain, the Confederation flagship is hailing us. Put them through, Sarah ordered, knowing this moment would change everything. Ambassador Zexley's face appeared on the screen, his usual composure shaken. Captain Chen, how? Our weapons cannot maintain target lock on these vessels. Yet you. Happy to assist, Ambassador. Sarah cut in, requesting permission to move to the front of the formation. Our targeting systems seem to be having better luck with these particular enemies. The ambassador's multifaceted eyes narrowed, but another explosion lit up space behind him. Granted, but we will discuss this. Accuracy of yours later. The Persistence moved forward, its engines no longer stuttering. Around them, the magnificent Confederation ships were struggling, their perfect technology confused by an enemy that didn't follow the rules. But the Persistence's hybrid systems, combining salvage technology with human intuition, were proving surprisingly effective. Multiple targets, approaching from Vector 317, Rivera called out. They're using some kind of phase shift technology. Confederation ships are losing sensor lock, but our cobbled-together sensors still see them. Sarah noted. Maya, remember how you said our shield modifications might do something interesting? Let's find out what. The shadow ships fired, their weapons unlike anything they'd seen before. But when the energy beams struck the Persistence's shields, something unexpected happened. Instead of trying to block the attack, the modified shields redirected it, creating unpredictable feedback loops that the shadow ship's systems couldn't compensate for. Their technology relies on perfect calculations. Dr. Zhang's voice came over the comm from her station in engineering. Our modifications are introducing chaos into the equation. They can't predict what we're going to do because we're not following any logical pattern. The battle raged for hours. The Confederation ships gradually adapted, taking cues from the Persistence's success. But it was the human vessel, the supposed relic, that led the defense. Its hybrid systems, imperfect but unpredictable, proved to be exactly what was needed against an enemy that defied conventional warfare. When the last shadow ship finally retreated, the Persistence's hull bore new scars, but it had proven something fundamental about humanity. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't having the best technology. It's knowing how to use whatever you have in ways nobody expects. Damage report, Sarah called out as the adrenaline of battle began to fade. Multiple hull breaches, shield generators operating at 30%. Neural interface system needs recalibration, Maya reported. But Captain, everything worked. Not perfectly, but it worked. Sarah looked out at the Confederation fleet, knowing that their relationship had just fundamentally changed. They would have questions, difficult ones, but they would also have to acknowledge that humanity's approach to technology, messy and improvised as it was, had value they hadn't recognized. Send word to the fleet, she ordered. The Persistence stands ready to assist with repairs and tactical analysis. As she gave the order, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The Confederation was about to learn that humanity's greatest innovation wasn't any particular technology. It was their ability to take whatever they had and make it work in ways nobody had ever imagined. Rising tensions. The Persistence sat in dock at Axum Prime, the Confederation's capital station. Through the viewport of her temporary quarters, Captain Sarah Chen could see teams of Confederation engineers studying her ship. They moved with precise efficiency, their crystalline environment suits glinting under the station's lights. They've been at it for 3 days, Lieutenant Rivera reported, handing her a datapad. They found some of our modifications, but not all. Maya made sure the most important ones stay hidden. Sarah reviewed the report. After the battle with the shadow ships, the Confederation's interest in the Persistence had shifted from dismissive tolerance to intense scrutiny. Some saw humanity's improvised technology as a potential asset. Others viewed it as a threat. Captain Chen. Ambassador Zexley's voice came from the doorway. The High Council requests your presence. They have questions about your ship's performance. The Confederation High Council chamber was a marvel of crystalline architecture, its walls refracting light in complex patterns. But Sarah noticed something new in the faces of the council members. uncertainty. The battle had shaken their confidence in the superiority of their technology. Explain, Council Leader Varix demanded, how a primitive human vessel managed to combat an enemy our most advanced ships struggled against. Sarah chose her words carefully. With respect, Council Leader, perhaps it's not about advancement, but adaptation. The shadow ships confused your targeting systems because they operated outside expected parameters. Our less sophisticated technology proved effective precisely because it was unpredictable. You modified your ship, another council member stated, using salvage technology in ways that violated standard protocols. We improved it, Sarah corrected, using what we had available. Humanity has always excelled at making the best of limited resources. The debate that followed split the council. The progressive faction, led by a younger council member named Taylor, argued for closer cooperation with humans, seeing value in their unconventional approaches. The traditionalists, including Varix, saw any deviation from established technological principles as dangerous. But it was Ambassador Zexley who asked the question they all feared. If humans can achieve this much with salvaged parts and a single ship, what might they do with full access to Confederation technology? Back on the Persistence, Maya Patel worked tirelessly to stay ahead of the inspections. They're learning, she told Sarah. Maya, she called through the secure channel. Remember how you said our shield modifications might do something interesting? I think it's time to show everyone just how interesting. The chief engineer's voice came back excited but focused. The quantum field manipulators are ready, Captain. But what we're about to try, it's never been tested at this scale. The Confederation fleet is mobilizing, Rivera reported. Standard defense formation. They're requesting we take our designated position at the rear. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Request denied. Maya, begin the sequence. Dr. Zhang, are you ready? Ready, Captain. Helen Zhang responded from her station. Though I should note that this technically violates several laws of physics. Good thing we're not too concerned with playing by the rules, Sarah replied. All hands, battle stations. Let's show them what humanity can really do. The Persistence moved forward, positioning itself between the Confederation fleet and the approaching Armada. The shadow ships, perhaps remembering their last encounter, adjusted their formation to focus on the human vessel. They remember us, Rivera noted. They're about to remember us a lot more clearly, Sarah responded. Maya, initiate the resonance cascade. The modifications they'd hidden from the Confederation inspectors went far beyond simple improvements. The Persistence had become something entirely new, a testbed for technological concepts that the Confederation's rigid thinking would never have considered. The quantum field manipulators activated, creating a web of energy that looked chaotic, but followed patterns based on human neural activity. The shadow ship's phase-shifting technology relied on precise calculations, but human brainwave patterns were anything but precise. Energy web deployed, Maya reported. Ready for Phase 2. Dr. Zhang, you're up. Zhang's voice was steady as she initiated her part of the plan, releasing quantum entanglement nodes, beginning synchronization with neural patterns. The space around the Persistence began to ripple. The ship's modified shields weren't just defending against attacks, they were reaching out, imposing human unpredictability on reality itself. The shadow ship's perfect formations began to falter as their phase-shifting technology encountered patterns it couldn't predict. Multiple enemy vessels showing signs of destabilization, Rivera reported. Their phase shifting is becoming erratic. The Confederation fleet watched in stunned silence as the Persistence's energy web expanded, creating zones where the shadow ship's technology simply couldn't function. It wasn't about matching their advanced technology. It was about changing the rules of the game entirely. Confederation vessels, Sarah broadcast on all channels, target the destabilized ships. Your weapons will be effective now. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The Persistence's hybrid technology created windows of vulnerability in the shadow ship's defenses, while the Confederation's advanced weapons exploited those openings. It was a perfect synthesis of human improvisation and Confederation precision. But the shadow ships hadn't come unprepared. They launched a desperate assault on the Persistence, recognizing it as the key to their enemy's defense. The human ship's hull groaned under impacts that should have torn it apart. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, Rivera called out. "Shield generators at critical levels." "Maya, how much longer can we maintain the resonance field?" "The quantum manipulators are burning out," the engineer reported. 5 minutes, maybe less." Sarah made a quick decision. "Dr. Zhang, initiate the final sequence. The one we didn't tell anyone about." "Captain." Zhang's voice held a note of concern. "That modification, we never tested it. The energy requirements alone are less than what we'll need to survive the next 5 minutes." Sarah finished. "Do it." The Persistence's final modification was something that would have horrified the Confederation scientists, a deliberate introduction of controlled chaos into the quantum field itself. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and exactly what they needed. The effect was immediate and devastating. The shadow ships' phase-shifting technology, already struggling against human unpredictability, encountered what amounted to a localized breakdown of physical laws. Ships began to materialize fully into normal space, their advanced systems unable to cope with the fundamentally altered reality around them. "Multiple enemy vessels disabled," Rivera reported, his voice rising with excitement. "The entire fleet is. They're retreating." The shadow ships, faced with an enemy they couldn't predict or counter, began a massive withdrawal. The Persistence's jury-rigged technology had accomplished what the Confederation's perfect systems couldn't. It had introduced enough uncertainty to make retreat the only logical option. As the enemy fleet disappeared into the void, the Persistence's systems finally gave out. Emergency crews rushed to contain the damage, while the Confederation fleet moved to protect their wounded ally. In the aftermath, the Confederation High Council convened an emergency session. The traditionalists' calls for restricting human innovation were drowned out by those who had witnessed what the Persistence had accomplished. "Perhaps," Council leader Varix admitted reluctantly, "we have something to learn from human methods after all." Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, surveying the damage to her ship. The Persistence would need extensive repairs, but it had proven something fundamental about humanity. Their greatest strength wasn't in having the most advanced technology. It was in their ability to take whatever they had and transform it into something unexpected. "Engineer Patel," she called out, "begin repair preparations, and start thinking about what other improvements we might make while we're at it." Maya's tired voice came back with a hint of excitement. "Already have some ideas, Captain. The Confederation engineers who helped with emergency repairs, they had some interesting perspectives we might be able to work with." The Persistence had started as the weakest ship in the fleet, a relic kept around as a political gesture. But humanity had transformed it into something else entirely, not just a weapon, but a symbol of their species' greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to turn their very weaknesses into advantages. And as Sarah Chen looked out at the stars, she knew this was just the beginning. The Confederation had finally learned what it meant to have humans as allies. The shadow ships had learned what it meant to have humans as enemies. And humanity, they had remembered what they did best, taking whatever they had, no matter how primitive or broken, and turning it into something that could change the universe.